Hello, it's N.K.O. It's 17th of June 2026. It's 1925. Continuing reading from Affrilachian Tales, folk tales from the African American Appalachian tradition. The last story I read was called... Oops. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So the first story in the book and the last one that I read was Possum and Snake. So this one is called Why Possum's Tail is Bare. It goes. In the times when the world was still kind of new, folks started acting as if their mamas and papas had never taught them to behave. They were mean and nasty, wild and terrible. They didn't appreciate their blessings. The good Lord decided the world needed some tidying up. So he told the angels to empty the rain barrels he kept beside the pearly gates, but not before he told the only good man on earth how to survive. Next thing you know, there was a big flood. Waters pouring out of the sky and covering the land. Pretty soon everything was underwater, except for a big boat made by that good man named Noah and his family. They built that boat quick and fine, from a blueprint straight from heaven. And before they holed up inside that boat ready for the flood, Noah did what the good Lord had told him to do. Noah called all the critters to come inside and settle in that boat, and the critters came, big and small, 2 by 2, just before the big rain fell. It rained, and the rivers and the seas rose up, washed the world all new and clean again. But that took a while, 40 days and 40 nights. And while that boat was rocking on the waters, things got kind of boring for the folks stuck inside it. The people and the critters started getting grumpy and grouchy and pouty and mean, like the folks that had gotten cleaned away in the flood. Noah knew he had to do something about it. Noah called everybody together and said, "Children, we got to do something to entertain ourselves until this big rain is over. I've decided that every day, when the work of keeping this boat together is done, we'll take turns entertaining one another. Doesn't matter whether you have 2 legs, 4 legs, or no legs at all. If you're in this boat, you're in this business. You can dance, or sing, or tell stories, whatever you can do. That's the way we'll pass the time until we can get out of this water and off this boat." Everybody thought it was a good idea, and everybody agreed to take a turn entertaining the passengers and crew on Noah's boat. Everybody started making plans for what he or she might do to bring some joy to others. Everybody except for Mr. Possum. Mr. Possum didn't want to do anything but sleep. He had a long tail covered with a fine tangle of stringy hairs in those days. When Possum was supposed to help with work, he found himself a place to hide, covered himself with that blanket of a tail, and went to sleep. And that's what Possum intended to do whenever his turn to entertain came around. And it did, but nobody could find Mr. Possum. He'd squeezed himself behind some of the spare wood, set there for patching any holes in that big boat. There he lay, looking like nothing more than a pile of grey cobwebs and string, and there he stayed. Well, one of Noah's sons, the one named Ham, volunteered to take Possum's place. That day, Ham gathered a bit of that spare wood. He cut himself a long piece and a couple of round pieces and some pegs and such and put them all together. Then Ham took some of the string his mum and Mrs. Noah had used to tie up herbs and tie down supplies. Ham stretched that string around the pegs and a little piece of wood on one of those round pieces. Next thing he knew, that child had made himself the very first banjo. Ham started practicing, plinkety-plinkety, plucking on those strings, until he could make some noise. He worked at it all afternoon, until that noise turned into music. The music was so fine, folks forgot about what they were doing. Soon everybody was dancing to the tunes from Ham's banjo. Ham played hard, plinkety-plunk, plunkety-plink, then snap! One of those strings broke. Ham looked around for another string. He saw a pile of cobwebs and long strings behind some stacks of wood. Ham yanked out one of those strings and stretched it on the banjo. That string played better than any of the others, and the music started up again. But snap! There went another string. Ham yanked a new one out of that pile of cobwebs and string. The music went on, with folks stomping and laughing, clapping hands and paws, tapping tails and toes. Every time Ham broke a string, he knew where to find another one. And even with all that jumping and jiving going on, Possum never woke up. Some say that party went on all day and night, and right into the next day and night, until folks were too tired to dance any more. And some folks say the party went on until that big boat bumped against something and Noah opened the door to see dry land and a rainbow. However long the party went on, Mr. Possum didn't wake up until it was over. See, he felt cold, thought his tail had flipped off his back and slumped toward the floor. When he couldn't reach it in his sleep, Mr. Possum woke himself up and saw what was left of his tail. That thing was almost gone, not a hair hanging off of it, just a long, pink, ratty thing, the tail that possums wear to this very day. When Mr. Possum saw that, he fainted. Possums have been fainting ever since. When they see somebody coming toward them, they figure it's somebody ready to snatch off what's left of that tail. But that fine, stringy tail is gone. This tail is gone too. Story notes from the author. For some folks in my family, spirituality was a close walk with the good Lord. He wasn't far away from most of my elder relatives. He was in a garden with great-grandma every spring, summer and fall. Planting time, weeding time, harvest time. She talked to him all the time. Good Lord, my knees hurt. Now, God, I know you got your hand on my shoulder every day, but maybe you should put it on my knees for a while this morning. They could use a little help. Some folks called on the good Lord as if he were a relative or a friend as close as family. Prayer was a conversation, a routine part of the day, and the people of the good book were referred to as if they were friends and family too. Daddy told Pourquoi, French for how or why, tales about the good Lord and the folks of the Bible, but never within earshot of the preachers or Sunday school teachers in the family, including my mother. I heard most of them when he and I were going places in the car or coming home from the many chores he did for people in the community. I found out Pig's nose got flattened because he wouldn't keep it out of other folks' business, and Spider can't make colourful thread because he tried to steal the fine threads of Snake's coat. Daddy said these stories nobody believed, but they told them anyway. Now, the Frog and Rabbit. Once upon a time, about time and a half ago, Frog and Rabbit were hopping buddies, but not the best of friends. Every day from sunrise to sunset, Frog and Rabbit hopped and worked together in the garden between their houses. They turned the soil, pulled the weeds and planted the seeds together. They grew fine vegetables of every colour and kind. All that working together should have made them good friends. But every day, first thing in the morning, Rabbit made Frog angry. You see, the two had decided they'd take turns making breakfast for one another. One morning, Frog made breakfast at his house. The next morning, Rabbit made breakfast at his house. No matter who made breakfast, Rabbit ate everything. Slept, gobble, gulp. Frog made breakfast at his house. Slurp, gobble, gulp. Rabbit ate everything. Rabbit made breakfast at his house. Slurp, gobble, gulp. Rabbit ate everything. Frog made breakfast at his house, but he fussed and yelled and screamed and hopped up and down as if his toes were on fire. Didn't matter. Slurp, gobble and gulp. Rabbit ate everything. Then one evening, hungry and angry, Frog came up with a plan to teach greedy Rabbit a lesson. Long after the work was done, Frog hopped over to Rabbit's house and banged on the door. Blim, blam, blim. When Rabbit saw Frog at his door, he figured Frog had come over for a fight about breakfast. But Frog said, Rabbit, I have a surprise for you. No matter whose turn it is to make breakfast tomorrow morning, I've decided that I'll make breakfast at my house. Rabbit pulled his whiskers. You'll make breakfast, Frog? Well, fine, Rabbit said. That's fine. Yep, said Frog. I'm going to make your favourite meal, a big pot of vegetable stew with the freshest vegetables from our garden. Rabbit scratched his ears. My favourite? Vegetable stew? Well, fine, Rabbit said. That's really fine. Yep, Frog said, but there's some early morning work to be done in the garden. Some young plants I need to tend. I have to cover them tonight so they don't freeze in a late night chill, and uncover them early morning for the day-bright sun. I might be busy in the garden when you come to breakfast, but I'll leave my door unlocked just for you. If I'm not at the table, you just help yourself to breakfast, Rabbit. You eat all you want. Rabbit grinned as he said, Eat all I want and you won't be there? Well, fine, that's just fine. Yep, Frog said, and he grinned too, all the way back to his own house. When Frog got home, he started a fire in his cook stove. Not too much tinder, not too much wood, just enough heat to make a pot simmer. Then Frog reached into his cupboard and pulled out the biggest cooking pot he had. Frog set that pot on the cook stove and poured a little water into it. Then Frog added fresh vegetables from the garden, green beans, collard greens, kale and cabbage, spinach and corn, sweet yams, red onions and white onions, peas and carrots, fine vegetables of every colour and kind. The vegetables simmered as Frog stirred the pot. Frog watched it bubble all night long. The vegetables slowly cooked into a good-smelling, strange-looking vegetable mush. Frog took the pot off the cook stove and set it on the table. Frog set out 2 bowls and 2 spoons. When the vegetable mush had cooled a bit, Frog jumped up on the table, hopped onto the rim of that big cooking pot, held his breath, and dropped into the pot. Splooch. Frog waited. Finally, he heard Rabbit banging on his door. Blim, blam, blim. When Frog didn't come to the door, Rabbit let himself in for breakfast. There on the table were 2 bowls and 2 spoons and a pot of something that looked kind of strange but smelled like delicious vegetable stew. This stew looks mushy-ushy, but I didn't have to cook it, and Frog's not here. I can eat all I want. Well, fine, Rabbit smiled. That's just fine. Rabbit didn't use his spoon or table manners. He just sat down and picked up a bowl, scooped up some mush and swallowed. Slurp, gobble, gulp. That mushy stuff was so delicious. Rabbit scooped out some more. Slurp, gobble, gulp. More, Rabbit giggled, and slurp, gobble, gulp. Rabbit emptied the pot and licked it clean. Well, you know how it is when your belly gets full. Rabbit felt like taking a nap. He wanted to go home and sleep. But as Rabbit rose from his chair, his belly rumbled and grumbled. It rolled to one side of his body, then the other. Rabbit thought he had to burp. He opened his mouth, and up from his throat came, Burp, greedy, greedy, greedy. Oops, said Rabbit to himself, excuse me. He took a few steps toward the door. His belly rumbled and grumbled. It rolled to one side and then the other. Ow, said Rabbit, and right behind the ow, up from Rabbit's throat came, Barp, greedy, greedy, greedy. Oh, my belly, Rabbit moaned. He tried to run down the road to his own house, but every time he took a step, his stomach rumbled and grumbled. It rolled to one side, then the other, and noises came from Rabbit's throat, whether he meant to say anything or not. Burp, greedy, 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 barp, greedy, 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 burp, greedy, greedy, greedy. Rabbit fell to the ground. He rolled all around. He held his stomach. He opened his mouth and moaned, Ow, oh, I shouldn't have been so greedy. And right then out of Rabbit's open mouth hopped Frog. Yep, Frog said. That's right, Rabbit. You should not have been so greedy, greedy, greedy. Frog turned his back and hopped home. Rabbit jumped up and ran lickety-split all the way to his house. And ever since then, frogs and rabbits have not been friends, not even hopping buddies. You see, to this very day, Frog sits in a forest or around the ponds and streams in the evening and talk about that selfish rabbit and the way he ate. If you sit quietly in the woods, you can hear them saying, greedy, greedy, greedy. Okay. The rabbits the rabbits know the story because the frogs keep telling it. Embarrassed rabbits don't slurp and gobble and gulp their food anymore. When rabbits eat, they take tiny little nibbles of everything. Rabbits remember the time that other rabbit had a frog in his throat. Story notes from the author. About time and a half ago was my grandfather's way of saying once upon a time. Pop Pops, Briard Awkward, was the second best storyteller I ever heard. I begin my version of this story with his words. My favourite storyteller was my father, whom friends and family called Jake. I don't remember who first told me this tale of the less than friendly neighbours, Frog and Rabbit, so I share this version, my own adaptation, to honour both Pop-Pops and Daddy. Greed has its own price to pay. Frog teaches that lesson to Rabbit in a funny but rather disgusting way. The same lesson is taught in a very similar tale from Ghana, related in Jack Berry's collection West African Folk Tales from Northwestern University 1991. In this story, Frog's wife serves a meaty stew to Greedy Spider, undoubtedly a relative of the beloved Akan culture hero and trickster Anansi, who swallows Frog, hidden in the meat his wife has served. After 40 days of stomach troubles and strange sounds, gradip, gradip, or waya in the Ademme language, as Berry explains in his notes, Frog reappears through Spider's mouth and chastises Spider. Good stories travel far and live as long as they are told. May this adaptation of my elder story travel as a friend with those who read and enjoy it. Ashe. Alright, maybe one more. This one is called Fox and Old Man Turtle. Fox was a sly and hungry fellow, liked to sneak up on smaller critters and snatch 'em away for a meal. Sometimes Fox had a taste for rabbit stew or roast squirrel, and sometimes he got a taste for frog legs or a bowl of turtle soup. That's when he'd saunter down to the pond. He'd bully the bullfrogs and tease the tiny frogs sitting in and around the water. He'd snap at them and paw at them, and sometimes he'd catch a few. Then he tormented Old Man Turtle, tried to catch him by a leg or by his head or tail and yank him out of his shell so he could turn that poor turtle into soup. Old Man Turtle had been around for a long time. He'd learned a few tricky ways from the best of tricksters. Rabbit and Old Man Turtle had some tricks of his own too. When Fox snapped at him and scratched at him with those paws and claws, Old Man Turtle pulled his arms and legs, his head and his tail deep inside his shell. Bloop! Fox could snap and paw all he wanted then, but he couldn't get to Old Man Turtle inside that shell. Fox would give up his hungry hunt and go into the woods to try and find the fixings for rabbit stew or roast squirrel. One morning, Old Man Turtle was making his way back from a nearby field. He'd gone there to snack on the bugs that nibbled at the blades of sweet grass and the tasty clover. But there'd been some trouble in that field, big trouble that Old Man Turtle hadn't expected, and now Old Man Turtle was heading to the pond, walking slower than ever. Sometimes he stopped altogether, shook his little head and said, "Ow." Old Man Turtle took a few steps, stopped, shook his head and said, "Ow," again. Then he thought about the way he was walking and the one he might meet on the way back home. "Oh, I hope this is the day that Fox leaves me alone," moaned Old Man Turtle. "I'm too tired and too sore to have to deal with him today. I just want to get back to my home in the pond." And who do you think came down the road right then? That's right, Fox. Fox trotted along, sniffing up a bite to eat, when he saw Old Man Turtle. He stopped trotting and started running. "Ah!" Fox grinned as he ran. "Time for turtle soup." Well, Old Man Turtle pulled himself into his shell. Bloop! But something was wrong with his tail. It was all crispy and crooked, and it wouldn't slide all the way into the shell like it should. Old Man Turtle's tail just bent kind of funny and crackled. "Ow!" shouted Old Man Turtle. Then he started to cry, but he kept his head inside this shell. Fox heard that turtle cry and he stopped. Seemed like Old Man Turtle had a problem. Fox asked, "Old Man Turtle, what's wrong with you? Why are you making such a terrible noise?" Turtle lamented, "This has been a bad day, Fox, and I wish you'd just leave me alone. I went to the field to have myself a snack. Then I heard the farmer talking about clearing the field to do some planting. I didn't know that he meant he was going to set the field afire. Next thing I knew, my toes were heating up and my shell was getting singed, and my tail, oh, I think it's burnt like bacon." Fox looked at that turtle's tail. Sure enough, it was still sizzling, and it wouldn't curl up and slide inside Old Man Turtle's shell. "Oh, you poor thing," said Fox. "Don't worry, I'll take care of you. Why, I'll just snatch you up by that crispy tail and shake you right out of that shell." Fox grabbed Fox grabbed Old Man Turtle's burnt-up tail and started shaking him left and right. "Ow!" cried Old Man Turtle, but he knew yelling and crying wouldn't get him out of this predicament. He'd have to be as tricky as a turtle could be, maybe even as tricky as Rabbit. Fox, you can shake me till I fall out of this shell. You can take me home and make me into soup. But please, don't throw me into the pond. What? Asked Fox. He stopped shaking the turtle, but he kept hold of that tail. Why, I thought you liked the water, he said. Well, generally speaking, I do, said Old Man Turtle, but I'm so hot from that fire that I'll probably boil in the water. I don't want to boil to death. Please, whatever you do, don't throw me in the pond. Just to be mean, Fox said. Ha! I think that's what I'm going to do. I think that's what I'm gonna do, Turtle. I'm gonna throw you into the pond and let you boil. Then I'm gonna have boiled turtle for dinner. No, please don't do it, begged Old Man Turtle. But he was looking forward to the cool water and the shelter of the pond that was his home. Fox trotted down to the pond and threw Old Man Turtle into the water. Splash! Old Man Turtle sank right down to the bottom where he settled into the cool, soothing mud, and there he stayed, letting his toes be tickled by the waters, his singed shell cool off, and his crispy bacon tail heal. Fox waited for that turtle to start bubbling and boiling, but nothing happened. That is, nothing happened except that Fox figured out he'd been tricked. Fox jumped up and down, fussing and fuming and shouting, "You old, hard-backed hustler, you tricked me. I don't believe you did that." Fox jumped up and down and fell into the pond. Splash! And Old Man Turtle bit that young fox's tail. Snap! Yow! Now it was Fox's turn to cry. He splashed and spluttered and leapt out of the pond. The bullfrogs and the little frogs started laughing at Fox. The biggest bullfrog called out, "Turtle gotcha! Turtle gotcha! I don't believe it! I don't believe it!" Fox was so embarrassed. He didn't even try to catch any of the frogs. He didn't hunt for rabbits or squirrels either. Fox just went home. Frogs, big and small, told any critter who would listen about the way Old Man Turtle had tricked Fox. Then the little frogs giggled, "Daddy, daddy, daddy," and the bullfrogs puffed themselves up and praised Old Man Turtle. To this day, if you go to the pond, you can hear the frogs still talking about tricky Old Man Turtle and foolish Fox and still laughing. The little frogs giggle, "Daddy, daddy, daddy," and the bullfrogs tell the story and brag, "Turtle did it, believe it, Turtle did it, believe it." And then Linford, the author's story notes, Great-grandpa Jerome Arkwood, Great Pops, told this story after I'd spent some time in the Stone Pond, a pool he'd built next to the old Victorian house where I spent many lovely days each summer. The pool was a round stone wall filled with water in which swam what I thought were the biggest goldfish in the world. I didn't know they were koi or that the stone pond was actually a pool. Orange and golden and speckled, those fish drifted like dreams in the water that rippled over a deep blue concrete floor. Late one summer, Great Pop told me that we were going to clean out the pool. "We have to catch the fish first," he said. He went toward the shed, but he returned quickly when I started yelling for help. I'd taken his word seriously, climbed into the pool and managed to catch one of those big goldfish. I'd wrapped my arms tightly around the thing and lifted it out of the water. I don't know how I managed that, but I do know I was afraid to let go. That fish was a squirmy thing and its tail was slapping me in the face. "Help!" I cried. I probably sounded like Fox, but Great Pot was no help at all. He was laughing so hard he couldn't make a sound. When he could, he gave me the simplest of instructions. "Linny, let go." I did. Problem solved. Then he helped me out of the pool, and we got his wading boots, the net, and the buckets from the shed. Somehow my foolishness reminded Great Pops of this story. I remember sitting on the edge of the stone pond as he stood in the water, scooped giant goldfish into buckets of water, and told me about Fox falling into Old Man Turtle's pond. Brilliant. Thank you for listening.